a lot of security is being purchased a lot of times on fear, right? And there's a lot of truth behind that, or it wouldn't that fear wouldn't exist. But I saw that there was a warning from the Department of Homeland Security recently. What advice do you give listeners on the whole kind of what's happening in the market right now? Um, and I guess when you think about what's happening in the news right now, how should what advice could you give a listener?
Well, from my perspective, I'm not one to talk about technology from that FUD perspective, fear, uncertainty, and doubt. The idea is not to scare people into protecting themselves. And yet there has to be a healthy fear. Wouldn't you agree? We obviously have concerns that need to be mitigated because the last thing we want is to have some piece of ransomware or some type of spear phishing attack get through and then affect our organization. We've already had enough disruptor, things happen this year. We don't need more. So how do you fix that? For me, I like to encourage folks, first of all, if you do move to Office 365 or M365 if you've done that in the short term, go back and recheck to make sure of a few things. The Department of Homeland Security encourages these things. First of all, make sure that you have multi-factor authentication turned on if you can. Look at the policy for that. Also, make sure that you have what's called least privileged access. In other words, don't give everyone in the company global admin rights. It gets very easy to do that when you're frustrated, you don't know how something works, and you give away the global admin rights, and now it all works. Don't do that. Make sure people only have the roles that they need for their job. Make sure, especially from email, that you turn off legacy basic authentication protocols. That's been deprecated and done away with. So make sure that you're not utilizing protocols that are not going to benefit you or are legacy and could be security risks. So there's a couple of things I recommend, things that are built in to M365. This won't cost you a dime. That's first. Second, I recommend that you look at things like SPF, DKIM, and DMARC, because a lot of folks are not implementing this. I just did a massive implementation over the summer, and you'd be amazed to see how doing that will help when it comes to brand exploitation as well as domain spoofing of your domain. Because the last thing you want is for your company name to get pulled through the mud because you were used in some type of domain spoofing attack. So SPF is not hard to implement. DKIM, Microsoft gives you the command line in Exchange Management Shell for you to use. It's copy and paste. It's easy to implement. The DMARC side is easy to implement, but you need an analyzer, right? Microsoft doesn't have an analyzer. You have to get that from a third party. Mimecast does. So by analyzing things, you can see the triangulation of SPF and DKIM, and you can see how you're doing in that regard. So that's second. And then third, I recommend that they look at a third-party bolt-on solution for security, something that's going to ensure that you have the latest and greatest, the most innovative security on the front end. To ensure that you're not just dealing with opportunistic attacks, but targeted attacks, things that are truly coming your way on purpose. So those are my three recommendations.
Lisa, what about you?
Boy, I couldn't agree anymore. Peter, well said. Spot on as far as the recommendations. We sometimes add for a customer item. A lot of times we work with a customer, we encourage them to be using some type of security framework, some type of best practice. At a basic level, the CIS, Center for Internet Security, the CIS.org website has a guide for hardening Azure and O365, M365, et cetera. And we recommend that a customer go through that, vet out all of your configurations against a best known working best practice guideline, just to take it that one step, again, with that least privilege, multi-factor auth, all those things that we consider foundational that could possibly be overlooked by an administrator that may not be very well versed in email or any type of cloud setup. That's a very good guide that helps.